They were watching, studying, and arriving again and again at the same conclusion. The person who cries easily is not weaker than everyone else. They are wired differently. They feel more deeply. They see further. They carry more. Today, we're going to break down exactly what they meant, what philosophy has to say about tears, and why most of us have been misreading this our entire lives. Think about the first time someone told you to stop crying. You probably weren't an adult yet. Maybe you scraped your knee. Maybe someone said something cruel. Maybe you just felt something deeply and couldn't hold it in. And the response you got from a parent, a teacher, a peer was some version of the same thing. Stop. Be strong. Don't cry. That message didn't just fade away. It got wired in. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "We are not asked what kind of person to be. We are simply thrown into existence. We arrive in a world that already has its rules in place. And one of the first rules we absorb is this: emotions are inconvenient. Visible emotions are weakness. Tears are something to be ashamed of." Sartre called this mauvaise foi, bad faith, the state in which a person lives not by their own choices but by a script written by someone else. Most of us, at some point, started playing exactly that role, the role of the one who doesn't cry. But what happened to the ones who couldn't stop, the ones who felt so intensely that tears came whether they wanted them or not? They learned to hide it, or they spent their lives earning the label too sensitive, too emotional, too much. And this is where the real philosophical problem begins. Arthur Schopenhauer spent most of his life convinced that the world is suffering not as a metaphor, as a literal fact. He described reality as a blind, insatiable will, a force driving all living things forward with no purpose and no mercy. And most people, in his view, simply don't notice this. They're too caught up in their own small self, their desires, their plans, their survival. But there are others. Schopenhauer described them as people with a heightened capacity for contemplation, those who can step outside the boundaries of their own ego and perceive reality directly, without filters, without defenses, without anesthesia. He said, "The genius suffers more because he sees more." This is not a romanticization of pain. It is an observation about how consciousness works. The person who cries easily is not someone who can't cope. They are someone whose mind refuses to simplify, who sees the full picture where others see only what's convenient to see. Schopenhauer would say, these people are closer to the truth. And that is precisely why it is harder for them. But there is something most people never stop to consider. Not all brains respond to emotion the same way. For the average person, a touching moment in a film, a sad song, the sight of a stranger in pain, these things register, but they don't overwhelm. The signal arrives, gets processed, fades. For someone else, that same signal lands differently, deeper, longer, more completely. Maurice Merleau-Ponty, the French phenomenologist of the 20th century, had a precise explanation for this. He said, "We do not observe the world from the outside. We live in it, through the body. The body is the first language. It responds to reality before consciousness has had time to decide anything. And in people who cry easily, that language speaks louder. Tears are not a reaction to an emotion. They are the moment when the body refuses to lie, when the inner reality becomes so large that it simply comes out through the only channel that exists for it. This is not a loss of control. This is honesty at the level of the nervous system. There is a specific kind of experience that people with high emotional sensitivity know intimately, and it has nothing to do with their own pain. It is the moment they witness someone else's suffering and feel it as if it is happening to them, not metaphorically. Physically, a tightness in the chest, a lump in the throat, eyes that feel before they have made any conscious decision to feel anything at all. Schopenhauer had a word for this, Mitleid, literally co-suffering, not pity, not sympathy, the dissolution of the boundary between I and other. He considered this the only true foundation of morality. Not laws, not duties, not rules, but the capacity to feel another person's pain as your own. Buddhism calls this karuna, compassion, as the experience of the unity of all living things, not a concept, an experience, immediate, bodily, real. People who cry at the sight of someone else's grief are not sentimental. They are living what Schopenhauer considered the highest achievement of human development. The wall between I and you becomes thin, almost transparent, and that is not weakness. That is one of the rarest forms of consciousness. There is one more thing almost nobody talks about openly. People who cry easily often don't let go. They go home and replay the conversation. They lie awake thinking about the expression on someone's face from 3 years ago. They suddenly, in the middle of an ordinary day, feel a wave of the same emotion from a moment long past, and usually they are told, stop. Let it go, stop being so dramatic. But Søren Kierkegaard described this in an entirely different way. He distinguished between people living at the aesthetic level of existence and those living at the ethical level. Most people live on the surface. They felt it, forgot it, moved on. The emotion arrives, peaks, disappears. But there are those who cannot work that way, who descend into a moment and stay there, who return to it again and again. Not because they are weak, but because they refuse to release something before they have understood it completely. Kierkegaard called this a deepening into existence. And Nietzsche would add one more detail. The profound person needs a mask, because what they carry inside is too heavy for the surface world, because full presence in reality is not something most people are prepared to witness up close. And this creates a paradox. The deepest people often appear the most closed off, the most vulnerable, seem the most detached, because they learn to protect their inner world from the outside. Now, something almost nobody knows. Aristotle invented the word catharsis in the 4th century BCE. He was studying tragedy, Greek theatre, where audiences wept watching the downfall of heroes, and he asked, why? Why do people voluntarily go to witness suffering? His answer, because it is purification. Tragedy allows you to experience extreme emotions in a safe space. Grief, fear, pity. They pass through you and come out the other side. And afterward, something lifts. Not because the problem is solved, but because the system has restored its balance. Aristotle understood 2,500 years ago what most of us have never quite absorbed. Emotional release is not a sign of being broken. It is the mechanism by which the soul restores itself. The person who cries when they feel something deeply is not falling apart. They are living in a state of continuous catharsis. Their inner world does not accumulate for years what needs to come out. It clears in real time. The pressure builds and finds its exit again and again and again. This is not instability, this is function. Here is the part that almost never gets airtime in the conversation about emotional people. They are, as a rule, exceptional at everything that actually matters in human relationships. They don't have to force themselves to care about someone. They already do. Deeply, consistently, often at their own expense. They listen not because they trained themselves to, but because they are genuinely present to what another person is experiencing. They hear what wasn't said. They notice the emotional truth beneath the surface of the conversation, and they carry something increasingly rare, a real unguarded connection to human experience. They haven't gone numb. They haven't armored over. they are still permeable to the full range of what it means to be alive. The beauty, the grief, the unexpected tenderness of ordinary moments. Camus wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy, the man who carries his boulder upward, knowing it will roll back down, knowing the pain will return, knowing there is no end, and still he chooses presence. The person who cries easily is not the one who cannot carry their boulder. They are the one who carries it without anesthesia, fully aware, fully open, fully alive." So here is the question worth sitting with. Who is actually the stronger person? The one who never flinches? Who holds a stone face through everything? Who has mastered the performance of being unmoved? Or the one who still allows themselves to feel? Who hasn't traded their sensitivity for social approval? Who lives in full contact with reality, even though that is so much harder? Philosophy does not teach us not to cry. It teaches us to know why we cry, to understand what stands behind it, and to stop being ashamed of the fact that we are still capable of feeling at all. People who cry easily have been misread for most of their lives, labeled fragile, too emotional, too much. But philosophy tells a different story. Crying easily often means feeling deeply. It means your empathy is real and activated. It means your consciousness operates at a higher resolution than most people around you. And it means that you, despite everything this world does to discourage it, are still genuinely connected to the full weight and beauty of human experience. That is not something to hide. That is something to understand. If this video shifted the way you see emotional people even a little, subscribe. New videos on the philosophy most of us never stop to think about. And drop a comment. Do you think crying easily is weakness or hidden strength?